Some games are announced and then for many months or for many years completely disappear. Now, sometimes it's easily explained why, and other times it's not, and it can get a little messy. Now, we've got 10 games here that have went dark, and we want to talk about them. So let's get started off with number 10. Final Fantasy XVI was announced September 2020, and while it initially seemed that the game was pretty far along in development, with reports suggesting that work on this game started pretty soon after Final Fantasy XV, and the glimpses we have gotten look pretty substantial, the game has gone pretty quiet for I think well over 6 months, and we've been waiting to hear more because we love Final Fantasy, and this looks like a really good one with more of an action RPG style, a cool new world and characters. This one seemingly centered around war and strife, and we got glimpses of the soundtrack, but thankfully we did recently get an update. We do know that we are going to finally hear something about this game this spring, 2022. But part of this one going quiet for a while was just the creator saying it wasn't ready. It skipped some trade shows, it skipped Tokyo Game Show 2021. And in December of 2021, the creators did also go on record saying that the COVID-19 pandemic did also really delay finishing development on the game. So hopefully this is one of the better games we're talking about on this list. It's gone quiet, it's gone dark for a little while, it did seemingly vanish, but hopefully soon we'll actually see the full game and get it in our hands. They said we'll hear more spring 2022, so we're waiting. Now, next over at number 9, we have Beyond Good and Evil 2. Now, this one we talked about a lot. This was formally announced E3 2017, for real. That was apparently day 0 for this game. And even before that, it had been a thing that had been talked about, kind of teased, tossed around for so long. And at this point, Michel Ancel, the series creator, is no longer working at Ubisoft, but it really is pretty much nothing. This game has really dropped off, and we haven't heard anything about it for seemingly years. It also seems like a really ambitious, high-concept project, even when people have gotten to see it, like the press, and when players got to see videos and live streams. It's really not clear what exactly they're going for with this game, but they have a lot of ideas. We did actually hear something, believe it or not, in July 2021, where Ubisoft said, just very briefly in one of their financial, analyst investor report type things, that development is progressing well, and I quote. That's it. That's all we know. Who knows? It's probably going to be a very long time before we see anything of this game, and I wonder if the final product, if we're even going to recognize it after seeing this early stuff. Who knows? Next over at number 8, we have Hollow Knight Silksong. This one is painful. This was announced February 2019, and hardcore Hollow Knight fans have been foaming at the mouth waiting for this one, especially because that announcement, the game looked pretty ready to go. And man, the follow-up to Hollow Knight is just something that people are really dying for, because Hollow Knight was such an incredible game. It was so tight, it was so interesting, it was so unique, the way it blended genres, the art style was so cool, so it's a no-brainer that the next one, the follow-up, is gonna kick ass. But we've still been waiting, and it's still been really quiet. It's skipped E3, it's had no release dates. We've thought it was going to pop up at a random presentation at E3 and Nintendo Direct, and still nothing. And it is definitely coming, but this is still definitely one of those when it's ready type of games. And you know what? Fine. Next over at number 7, we have The Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake. Now, this was initially announced at a Ubisoft summer event in 2020. And while, a lot of people, especially us here, we really love the original Sands of Time, and yeah, sure, a remake of it could be cool, even though personally I think the original game still holds up pretty well. The announcement felt like a little bit of a wet blanket just because it didn't look quite right. The graphics, some of the characters' faces, and some of the presentation just didn't look very good. And after that announcement in 2020, we didn't hear anything until pretty much the end of 2021, where the development team did come out and finally give us something. They just put out a statement that said, "We want to take a moment to reassure you that the development of Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time is still underway, motivated and inspired by your feedback. We will update you on our progress in the future, and thank you," and blah, 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 blah. And that's really all we've heard, because it was announced, then it skipped a year, now this, and at this point, it seems like it's going to be a 2023 game, so it's still out there, it's just not really heavily publicized at this point. They're just working on it. I say this with a lot of remakes and remasters and anything, the really special games out there really deserve time and care and proper treatment, and Sands of Time is definitely no different. So hopefully Ubisoft is actually giving it that care. That's why it's missing right now. Anyway, moving on over to number 6, speaking of Ubisoft, let's talk Skull and Bones. This was revealed in 2017 as a sort of multiplayer pirate type of game, roughly inspired by the Assassin's Creed Black Flag pirate stuff, but really doing its own thing. And this game has to be in development hell at this point, because this is another one where Ubisoft seemed gung-ho on it, spending a bunch of money on it, some ambitious ideas, and then it kind of just disappeared. All we know now is that there was a change of direction in 2020, according to reports. It was quote-unquote called a new vision, and the approach to the game might be slightly different now. How exactly, we don't know for sure, because there's so many reports and so much info about them kind of scrapping different design ideas throughout the way. I mean, this game was actually originally slated to release towards the end of 2018, and then the game was delayed until 2019, and then 2020, and then it just kept going. You see the snowball effect here. I don't know what the deal is with Skull and Bones. I do personally really like pirates. I think they're cool, and I think we need more pirate games, but I don't know about this one. When they're ready, of course, they'll probably show us something, but the fact that it's been quiet for this long, considering it was supposed to come out years ago, I don't know. Next, over at number 5, we have Avowed. Now, this was revealed at the 2021 Xbox Games Showcase, and it's Obsidian's next game. And it's a big deal because it's one of their first games since Microsoft acquired the studio. The studio, of course, is famous for games like Fallout New Vegas and more recently, The Outer Worlds. So if you ask an RPG fan, they pretty much know what they're doing, and Avowed is their next big fantasy RPG. A lot of people have been throwing around comparisons to Skyrim in terms of just a big open world thing, some sort of Bethesda style RPG, but we don't really know for sure yet because all we still have after all this time is this teaser trailer that we kind of have to have on repeat. We see skeletons, castle sieges, swords and magic, and pretty much what you'd expect from a fantasy RPG, but interestingly enough, this actually technically takes place in the same world as the Pillars of Eternity games, games that Obsidian previously developed. Now, the answer for like where this one is, why this game vanished, isn't really that exciting. To be honest, I think what they did here was just announce the game really early, and then they put their heads down and started working on it. So I expect this to continue for a while. I think it's still going to be a while before we see substantial stuff from Avowed. You know, maybe this gaming season of news will get a new glimpse in some actual gameplay, but we still expect this game to really be a ways off. And I think that wait will definitely be worth it, considering us here, we really liked The Outer Worlds. We liked what they did there in terms of taking their stuff from Fallout New Vegas and making their own thing with the creativity and just the cool RPG decisions, so we expect Avowed to do something similar. And those types of games take a long time to build out and grow, so we're ready for Avowed whenever it comes, to be honest. But now, next over at number 4, we have Everwild. Everwild was revealed in 2019, and this is another Xbox game. This is actually Rare's newest game, and that's a big deal because Rare are just heavyweight developers from the olden days, from stuff like GoldenEye, Banjo-Kazooie, up to more recently, Sea of Thieves. Now, the studio is very different. Obviously, a long time has passed, but we still really like the games they make, and clearly a lot of people do because Everwild had some interest when it was first revealed, and that's it. That's all we saw was this here. It looks to be a kind of open world, sandboxy style adventure game where you can play with possibly some other players and jump around and use magic, but it seemingly has a pretty cool kind of signature Rare art style to it. That charm, that quirk is what a lot of people come to these games for. There have been reports out there suggesting that Everwild has actually internally been rebooted, like the project wasn't really working out exactly how they wanted, so they decided to change direction. And according to some insider reports, we're probably not going to see this thing until 2023 or even possibly 2024. Now, Xbox and Microsoft have shown in the past that they definitely are down with supporting a studio like Rare and really letting it take its time, so hopefully that definitely works out here. Hopefully also the fact that they had to reboot the game if it wasn't quite working, hopefully this new direction actually warrants a pretty awesome and decent game worth checking out, but we're probably gonna have to wait a while, and we're probably not gonna hear anything for a while. Next, over at number 3, we have Hightail, a game that you may have heard about seemingly a very long time ago, especially if you're deep in the Minecraft world. And it's a game that still, even now in 2022, we haven't seen it get an official full release. Hightail is essentially a game made from Minecraft multiplayer server developers that, started making this thing. It was acquired by Riot Games in 2020, and this studio called Hypixel Studios is making this sandbox style game. Some people have billed it like the Minecraft competitor, so to speak. I think that's a bit reductive expensive, but it really did make a big splash and had a lot of Minecraft and just online gaming fans pretty interested. The way it went down though was that there was an announcement trailer in 2018. People were really excited. The developers eventually ended up shooting for a 2021 release, but in the summer of 2021, they said the game got bigger, things got more ambitious, and now the release is pushed to 2023. And really, that's pretty much all we've heard, so it technically vanished and is probably going to resurface closer to 2023. Now over at number 2, we have Perfect Dark. This is the upcoming reboot of the classic first-person shooter series. It's an Xbox-focused joint, and it's from a new studio that they founded from the ground up called The Initiative. You probably remember when they announced it being the first quadruple A game, a 4A game, AA. Seems a bit excessive, but they've talked about it being a pretty ambitious spy first-person shooter. The initial trailer we got didn't really tell us much, and that's all we've really heard about the game officially. It's been completely radio silent other than the announcement that Square Enix is also helping work on this game, and then the news that apparently the development might be a bit troubled. A lot of significant and high-level developers have left the project and went to work elsewhere, so we don't really know what's going on. The thing was announced in 2020, it's been 2 years, and we don't expect to see this one for a while. Expect this one to just continue to be disappeared for a minute at least. Because, ask yourself, what does a Perfect Dark game look like in the 2020s? I can't even imagine how they would reboot that thing and really make it interesting. I'm willing to give it a shot, of course. I grew up playing the original game on Nintendo 64, but like I said, we're seemingly gonna have to wait a while before we can judge this one. Now, next over at number 1, we have Metroid Prime 4. Of course, this is the big one. This was announced in 2017, and it was a big deal because Metroid Prime 3 was 2007, so this game was a long time coming. After that announcement in 2017, things were completely quiet. The game totally dropped off the face of the map. And then in 2019, we got the news that Nintendo was not happy of the direction of the game, where it was going, so they wiped everything out and started from scratch with new developers, specifically Retro Studios, the guys behind the original Metroid Prime games, which is absolutely genius. So with that going down in 2019, and then the whole pandemic happening, and that just generally pushing a lot of game development, we don't expect to see Metroid Prime for a minute. Those are some of the big games that were announced or talked about that completely vanished, but we got some bonus games that we had to mention, of course. Dead Island 2. What more can we say about this one? Apparently it is still in the works. Also, honorable mention to Elder Scrolls 6, because that game is a poster child for what we've talked about in this video, where it's announced and then it goes completely silent because it's going to take a long time to make that game. And last but not least, System Shock 3. Those are some games that we just wanted to talk about today, so we want to hear from you guys in the comments. What do you think? Is there a game out there that was announced, you were so excited, and then you haven't heard anything since? It's got to be longer than a couple of months. I know people have short-term attention spans, but have you been waiting years for something? Definitely let us know. If you enjoyed this video, clicking the like button's all you got to do. It really helps us out. And if you're new, consider subscribing, maybe hitting that notification bell, because we put out new videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.